how do we protect our identity in tech while maintaining a health, while maintaining our relationships, and every other hobby in our life?
When something fails at work or when they get laid off or something big happens at work or they receive harsh feedback, they're just completely like they're drowning. You don't need to be validated from one place. Then you can feel like, you know what, it's just work, okay, whatever, because you don't feel like that's the only place for you to find your value. I think that's the other big challenge with people and identities, where they associate so much of their identity to just work. The basic habits of realizing that work is just a part of your life, balancing life with work, because work is always going to be a part of your life. It's never going to be a whole life.
Be minimally processed. Priyanka,
Hey, Dolica.
we we have been working together for a long time, but I feel like we've been friends more than the time we've worked together.
That's right.
And you have been in the tech industry, in the corporate world for almost a decade now. I'm almost hitting my decade, just a
Wow.
couple more years.
Wow. I can't believe.
Time
Yeah,
flies,
yeah. I
right?
met you when you were just starting out in your career a little bit after that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2019. Yeah.
Awesome. Very
Yeah.
happy to hear that.
Yeah. And you have hit your decade, which is a big deal. So, my first question to you is, what did you imagine, your career in tech would be, or what would the corporate world would be like when you first started versus how is it now?
I mean, when I first started, I didn't even know what it meant to be a professional, like the word professional. I had actually asked my manager, hey, like, can you explain to me what does professional mean? Like, does it mean, dress up in a certain way or talk in a certain way or behave a certain way or present a certain way? And he just said, be yourself. And I think I think that's the best advice anyone could have given me at that time, because then I actually started asking myself, well, who am I, right? Because when someone tells you to be yourself, you're like, wait, who is that? So I think it was quite a journey from that point where I didn't even know what it meant to be professional to now. But I wouldn't say that I didn't exactly predict this, to be honest, because you know I think thankfully, I think hard work and luck both favored me, that I feel like I'm exactly where I wanted to be, and I am proud of myself because I really worked hard to create these milestone moments or these small wins that then led to the point that I am now, which is, I don't know if I told you this, but yeah, I'm taking on another role outside of AWS now, and it's a leadership opportunity, which I'm really excited about. It's in aviation, so more to share on that later on. But yeah, I feel like I paved my path, so I wouldn't say it was something that was unexpected. I feel like I did I I did exactly what I wanted to do, and hopefully that that streak continues.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned luck, but I honestly believe that luck is nothing but it's your preparation, and when an opportunity presents itself, your preparation is ready for it to take on, right? So it's just preparation meets opportunity. And I know how hard you've worked for the time I know you, and being a woman in tech is not easy. You're constantly trying to figure out how you can, create an identity for yourself, create your personal brand, and still own a voice in the room, right? So if you can share a little bit about what it was like to be in tech, but also on top of that, being a woman in tech, how was that journey?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, this is an interesting question. I think I'm still figuring that out. But just to kind of double down on the luck piece, right? What you said is exactly what it is. I also wanted to add to that by saying that what I call luck is also being at the right time at the right table. Because sometimes I worked really hard, I put all the effort, I knew exactly what I was talking about, I deserved the thing. but I wasn't at the right table, or it wasn't the right time for whatever I was building in terms of the market, where the market was at, right? So I think those external factors that you can't really control, I think that's what I am calling, or I've defined luck to be, which is stuff you can't control, which is beyond your hard work and your perseverance and resilience and all those things, right? So, so I've been at the wrong table, and then I figured out what the right table is, right?
It's like that it's like that water bottle thing, right? The water bottle might be worth whatever it is at manufacturing, but then the moment it gets out at the airport, it's like say $6, but then at the grocery store it's $2. So your worth is determined based on where you are.
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good point, Olika, because I actually remembered another analogy where this is a conversation between a father and a son, and the father has a basically a vintage car, and the son says, "Oh, how are you gonna sell this car because it's so old?" And then, um, the father says, "Well, I know the worth of this car, and I'm not going to be selling it to a regular person in a regular dealership. Instead I'm going to sell it in in a auto show or in some sort of vintage um, expo where people actually would value that car and pay millions for a car, because people I know where to find people that would value a vintage car, right? Which so again, it's like being at the right place and at the right time. But coming to your point about women and then tech, being a woman, I think times have gotten better. I think times have definitely changed for women, but I will say that it's also we still have a long way to go, and I think it's important for women like yourself and me to kind of create the path for the next generation of women to kind of. So I think every woman has to be trailblazing, to make real change, right? And it begins from anything to do with what you dress, what you're allowed to dress in. I still remember when I was this is back in 2017 when I started, and I always had this dream of like looking like the TV show Suits, Rachel, the the stuff that she would wear. So I would wear all these like really nice A-line skirts, and with a cut at the bottom, and those nice satin tops, and I would literally iron those a night before and keep them just for a regular work day at work. So I was really well dressed, and yet um, someone went to my manager and commented that, oh, Priyanka dresses inappropriately. And I was like, wait, what does that mean? When I heard about it later on, and apparently it just turns out that there are not enough women who dress boldly and have a sense of style, because typically women have shied away from dressing like the way they want and where they feel their most confident selves, because they're mostly dressing in like something where they're kind of visible but they're not fully visible, so it's like jeans and the regular boring, yeah, yeah, or like the formal pant, but then that's the extent of it. Nobody at that time was going beyond that. Nobody was exploring what it was like to wear like, like a nice formal dress, or like even a sleeveless shirt. And now I see like female leaders. Um, I was recently watching a female leader at this group called the Female Quotient, right? They have like their own sort of platform, and yeah, she was wearing a like a satin gown, but and it was like a sleeveless one, and she's leading a big organization. So I was like, wow, that is interesting. And so I think we have come a long way, as I said, but um, I hear women still asking me to this day, I don't know what to wear. I don't know if I can wear, a brighter shade of red as a lip color, right? Or I don't know if I can wear a shirt that just looks really like chic and fancy, um, but is satin, or maybe a bright color, you know, or something that just is just nice to look at, right? Because it's still not convention to do that. The conventional thing to do is just wear what men wear, which is pant and top, right? And then I started to change that in my own circles. And I was working for the US federal sector that time, so everywhere I went it was just mostly middle-aged white men, which is normal, right? And then I there were times where I would feel uncomfortable, but then I was like, you know what, if I feel uncomfortable, then I won't be able to create a space for other women who actually want to do that. But yeah, that's one side of it, which I think really bothered me, because I was always like someone who dressed well and who was like my mom, when we were young, she used to always make us dress like models. She would always say, oh, my kids are models, they're going to be, all that. And then so I always had this itch to dress up well. So if anyone hearing this, feel free to be your confident self in whatever it is that you're wearing, as long as you know what's decent, what you think is professionally appropriate. Dress up in whatever you feel like your best self. Put whatever makeup you want to put on, and yeah, and own it.
That's a really great answer because, I struggle with this still when we have team offset, especially now that we're all remote. It doesn't matter how you dress up at the bottom, but at least when you're on camera, the top part, we try to look decent and appropriate. And honestly, the safest dress is a t-shirt that looks, presentable. And I struggle with this every time we have a team offset or an in-person conference. I'm always like, is this going to be too much? Is this too dressy? But at the same time, you want to look presentable, right? You want to look a certain way. And to your point about this character in Suits, when I started in corporate, that's literally how I had planned my wardrobe. But then after I started, nobody would dress up that way. It's just jeans and, a decent top. Or maybe, like you said, formal pants and maybe again a decent top. But no one would go all out or even just to the potential that gives them that confidence. And on the days that I do put effort to dress up, I did feel confident. So that does say something, right? The way you dress does influence how you show up and how you speak, etc. But I definitely do think that women like you who openly speak about these topics, who openly provide suggestions to other women on, here's the way, pave the path for other women that follow you, etc. That's how we really begin that change. And I look up to people like you, especially when I first started off, you were my mentor then, and there was so much of unknowns and ambiguity that just really creates a lot of overwhelm. And if women don't support other women, then it becomes a problem. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think, you're spot on, Dolica. And this whole concept of women supporting women, right? Let's double click on that a little
that's
bit, right?
that's a topic on its own.
Right? Yeah, because you know, I am a huge believer of that and a huge advocate of that. It's so important because I've heard people, women who are in their early 20s all the way to their 60s, who've been in the corporate world for like 30 plus years, still insecure when they're talking to their manager. I don't know why. I mean, well, I know why, but I wish I could change that. And I think you're right. It's conversations like these that are required to open up people's minds and our even for our own selves. Like it's a reminder to realize that, well, if you're insecure, you're not the only one that's insecure. Everyone's insecure, right? And it's okay. The fact that it's okay to be insecure. Like I wouldn't say that don't be insecure. If someone comes and tells me that, hey, I feel very insecure, I don't go tell them that, hey, don't be, because you can't stop someone from feeling the way they feel. All you can do is tell them that, hey, you know what, I also feel that way sometimes. And I think these kinds of platforms, your podcast really helps women to understand that they're not the only one. And I think we also as a society need to come up with ways to encourage women to actively not just think in their minds that, oh yes, of course I'm supporting other women, I'm supportive of other women, but also actively engage and actively create systems where women are supporting other women. I think one thing I really learned, or one place where I really learned how to do that is through pageantry. So last year I competed at Miss Universe Canada, and there they call, like, we're all competing against each other, right? But we call each other sisters. Like, that's the term. You cannot say friends. That's the official term that you're in which you're supposed to address each other. And so they call it the sisterhood because they want each of you to look at each other as a sister or as an ally, right? Really. And they always say that, yes, you're competing against each other, but you're not really competing against each other. You're competing with your former self, right? And so yeah, like, I formed some of my best friendships from the pageant world because they were these incredible women who just lifted other women up. So I think it's really important for women to be around other accomplished, successful, and also like inspiring women who've really pushed the needle and who really want to make change.
Yes, 100%. And you spoke about creating platforms, but I think more than that, how in corporate we're taught to speak, but not speak too much. Think, but don't, question the status quo, or don't speak where it's you're really pushing someone's opinion back. But it's like everything needs to be just enough. But what does that mean? What does just enough mean? I don't think we talk about that. And I think it's also creating a space to be vulnerable, even in meetings, in corporate settings, right? Whether it's in a one-on-one setting or a group setting, we're always taught to don't say what you think. You have to make sure the other person takes it the way that they're supposed to. But how is that on you, right? You want to say it something, but then you're now overthinking, did I say too much? Is that person going to think xyz of me? There's so much unknown. And I think that's what creates a lot of I don't want to say anxiety, but that it creates a sense of, yeah, it's very unhealthy. We don't know whether we belong. The confidence also ultimately goes down. So I think that's also a problem. And that's my understanding of one thing that how women can be misunderstood because of this loop of overthinking. And I think the best way we can combat that is through communities, through creating that, like, women in STEM, or whether it's like a small circle of, yeah, of coworkers that you guys are working on this path towards greatness. So in your career, when you were working, what do most people think about you outside of the industry? No, I mean, like, for example, you're in tech, right? So the question that I always get asked is, so you work in tech, so you must be getting a really good salary. You must be super busy. You're like coding, you're solving problems. I think the first thing people think as soon as they say tech is coding, sitting in front of a laptop, computer, turning my camera on, maybe not even like no conversation, and just heads down and just super boring. It's that the standard tech. But what have you found your question your friends ask you that you find strange?
I mean, first of all, to address your thought process around, women, supporting women, and I think, and also women having this sense of self doubt, right? I think one of the things that we have to be aware of is the fact that, yes, because we're a minority still in the tech world, in corporate in general, there'll always be this sense of, oh, I don't know if I sound too sensitive, if I sound too emotional, as opposed to like a man who sounds more logical in their world, right? Or in comparison, and I think with that level of that kind of awareness, if we kind of peel the layer a little bit more, then I think we need to be okay with being a woman. I think one of the biggest um, challenges when you are a minority is to be okay being a minority and and actually exploring what it means to be that person and not trying to be someone else. Because I think one of the things, I think this also answers your second question, which is what do you find odd, is people telling me, "Oh, I'm trying really hard to sound like X, Y, and Z," and I'm like, "Why?" But it's a challenge because everyone wants to sound, every woman, um, at least the start of her career, wants to sound like a man because 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 that's what you think is the acceptable way to talk or be, right? And then if you try to come in and change, for example, in team meetings, people like uh, I was the only woman in the team, and yeah, this is one of the best teams I've worked at. But yeah, like when you'd get on the call, my manager would ask, "Hey, tell me what did you guys do on the weekend?" Blah blah blah, right? And then people would say, "Oh, I went hiking. Oh, I played golf. I watched a Superman movie or some superhero movie, right? Or I watched sports." None of those things are things that I do.
I,
Um,
I won the
and
pageant,
those
or
are
I
things that,
participated in the pageant.
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, but you know what I did? Instead of just sounding like another man, because I could have easily said something that sounds like them. I just said, hey, you know what? I watched Gossip Girl. This- and then, and that's one way to intentionally, first of all, rewire your brain to feel comfortable
To say that.
to say that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because, once you see what happens after you say that, that's how your brain starts feeling more safe in doing so again and again and again, right?
100%. Yeah.
So when I said that, then they were like, "What's Gossip Girl?" Then I was like, "Oh, you know what? It's a really great show. It's about these two girls and then these two guys, and then all the drama and all these things." And then yeah, so then I would just go ahead and explain what that was, um, and then over time, I even ended up telling my or educating my manager on how to how we can make the environment more inclusive, where we can only discuss topics, or let's at least prioritize discussing topics that we all might be interested in, right? So those are small ways in which all of us can contribute to making work more uh, equitable for everyone. I mean, it's very small, but it makes a big impact on you psychologically, because when you're, let's say, the next time you're in a team meeting with your manager, and your manager is there, and they intentionally say, "Hey, by the way, Priyanka, what did you do?" And, "Oh, tell me about, oh, you went to the nail spa. Oh, what color nail did you get?" Right? So you know, when they do that, you start feeling, "Oh, you know what? I'm not the odd one out. In fact, I'm yeah, yeah." And I think it's other people's responsibility as well to make sure that you feel like you belong. But I think it's also your responsibility. So I always try to take a lot of ownership, and I think this is one of those Amazon leadership principles that we talk about a lot. But yeah, I really love that leadership principle because 50% of everything is our problem, is our fault, and we need to take ownership of that. And so that's why, like, I start by taking my 50% ownership, and then I see how the other person's reacting to that remaining 50%. And in terms of self-doubt and feeling judged and all of that, I think those things are natural. I think we all feel that way at different points of time in our life. The only thing I would say is that I don't think people can stop feeling that way, at least earlier in their career, or even ever. I think the only thing, yeah, I think the only thing that helps is talking to your friends and like having a vent session. Like how me and you do, like we get on a call and we're like, "Oh, you know what? This happened to me. Oh, why do you think this happened? Oh my God, I'm so pissed at the." I think that's the best therapy, like literally, because once you share something with someone, then you feel lighter, and also your friends can give you some validation, right? Like, or your mentors, like saying, "Oh, you know what? I know that these are some things you can do, but you know what? Like you're good. Nothing's wrong with you, right? Basically, you need someone to tell you that nothing's wrong with you. And I think I think your friends and your mentors are the best people to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I 100% agree. I think the goal here is not to conform. You want to have your own opinion, you want to have your own style to approaching things. But at the same time, you check the boxes where you can, but when it comes to your identity, you kind of, push the bar. raise the bar for yourself and be better than who you are. And on the part where you said, talking to your friends, I think that's where I really love talking with you, is because you not only say, okay, your feelings are valid, but you also call me out on my BS, right? You literally say, you literally say,
I
ah,
try not to. I
you,
try my best not to.
no, but that's what a friend is, right, Priyanka? Like a friend
Yeah,
shouldn't just agree with you and say, yeah, yeah, your feelings are 100% valid.
absolutely.
Yeah, my feelings are valid, but then you also call me out on the things that I should have done that potentially could have, I would have avoided that situation. And I think that's what true friendship or even mentorship is. If you're
Yeah,
just going to someone to seek validation, I don't think that's going to bring any change into your life. There's not going to be much growth. But that's why I come to you when we have these vent sessions, because you genuinely say, okay, yeah, that person sent that message which bothered you, but then why didn't you reply back in a more stronger way? Why were you just submissive to it, right? So things like
yeah,
that, I think women also need to support each other if you found a good way of approaching a specific situation.
yeah. In your case, Dolica, I think there's a huge elephant in the room that you're not addressing, which is that you are someone who actually likes feedback. You know, so you like learning, and I've seen this about you for all the years that I've known you. You always ask people, oh, you know what? Tell me what I did wrong. I really want to know and I want to learn and I want to grow. Not everyone's like that, and that's what I would encourage everyone to be more of, like you, in this sense where yeah, you know what, feedback, like seek feedback, because feedback is only good enough when the seeker actually seeks it, and when the seeker actually implements that feedback, right? First you have to seek you can't teach a person who doesn't want to learn, right? You only teach a person that asks you. So that's why I actually, because I mean I've been told that I give a lot of advice and feedback, so now in my life I only give feedback or advice when I'm asked to give. And so only when you ask me, if you notice, or I will specifically call myself out, like, hey Dolika, I'm so sorry, I'm giving you some unsolicited advice, but here's what it is. And you're always like, you know what, I love it, please keep giving more of it, right? And that's the energy, that's what actually, that is the foundation of growth. I really believe that, because I think we're same in that aspect, where we just love it when people are looking around corners and telling us, like, hey, you know what, you could do this differently. Or even when I think one of the strongest indicators of who my mentors were was during the layoff last year that I had, and during which you know I got so much encouragement, but also so much feedback in terms of, okay, how do I need to, in fact, I would actually call my mentors and ask and tell them, you know what, I feel like I don't know what I'm supposed to do, and I don't want to get emotional, like sucked in emotionally. So tell me what I would ask them, tell me what I should think. And then, because sometimes you don't even know what to think, and you can ask someone that, saying, hey, can you tell me what to think in this exact situation? And people were really helpful and in helping me think, so that I don't mentally feel drained, and I don't kind of go into this sort of victim mode of, oh, you know what happened to me, and oh, and so I actually was, I think the those 3 months where I was laid off before I got another job, is, I think those were the three transformative months of my life, because I actually, for one, I figured out who I wanted to be, or what I wanted the next phase of my life to look like. And I borrowed a lot of courage from my friends and mentors who already believed in me, saying, hey, you know what, you've already accomplished all these things. Now this is actually your, the next phase of your life. It's like sort of an introspective phase of your life, where you really need to figure out what you need to do. So it's almost, this layoff is a gift, so they changed my perspective of how to even view something. So I think it's very, in so many different ways, it's very, very important. That's why I tell everybody who um, talks to me, saying, hey, you know what, you should have a mentor, you should have Friends, I don't care. That's your personal choice. But mentors, absolutely, because your mentors are also responsible for your success. It's a two-way thing. Friendship is like sort of, in terms of success is optional, right? But a mentor is actually um, invested in your success, and that's why they are called mentors, right? So I always tell people, have mentors, find them, be persistent in creating more mentors. But yeah.
No, 100%. For me, one thing that I've learned in my career is nothing in my, especially from, I can speak to myself. I've gotten this far mainly because my mentors pushed me, my mentors challenged me, and they did it in the right way. And, we spoke a little bit about, taking feedback, right? Taking feedback is, it's not easy. First of all, my first feedback, I will not lie, but I did take it like in like a victim mindset. I was like, why are they calling me out? Why did I do this? I didn't do that. That was not my intent. Like, I was really in defensive mode, right? And first feedbacks are always hard. But I think when we shift that perspective to, okay, this person, why would they waste their time to give me a lesson on all the things I could have done differently if they didn't cared? Like, why would they do that? And I think that's the first thing to understand is, if a person is giving you feedback, especially if they care for you, it means they genuinely want to see growth of you. And so that's one change that I rewired, that helped me take feedback more positively. And speaking of mentors, like I said, every mentor had a role in my life in various areas. And I read this on social media or in a book, I can't remember exactly, but this person says that you have to have a board of directors. Like, if how a company has a board of directors, your board of directors should be your mentors. And every person should have a role in your life. So for your career, you have one or a few people, and then for your family, you have one or a few people. Obviously, don't have a person who doesn't have experience in that, right? It's like taking advice from um you know a mentor who's not in tech, but you're expecting them to give you advice in tech. That's just not how it works. So a mentor should be someone who is a few steps ahead of you, who can guide you. I think that's the best way to find a mentor. And I want to also say one more thing about coaching, right? Today, actually, on LinkedIn, I found this post on growth mindset, and the post says, "Be coachable," and that's the best way you can always grow and have that growth mindset and foster that. So, I guess one question for you to on growth mindset on that topic is, you have seen, being in the past decade, you've seen what it's like to accept feedback, to grow. But today, if you were to talk to someone who's just starting off in tech, or maybe a couple of years in tech, how would you help them when it comes to fostering and developing a growth mindset?
That's, I was hoping you'd ask that question, so I'm glad you did. It it comes back to the feedback and the be coachable aspect, and I'll tell you why. Because first of all, no book, no um, theory, or no chat GPT is ever going to give you the real world experience or knowledge or wisdom, rather, of a real person telling you something, right? Nothing can replace that. No AI can replace that, right? So that's one thing to know that, right? Then you're like, okay, I need to find people that inspire me. So when you're in your early career, you need to actively seek for people who inspire you. Maybe someone's talking about something and you like the way they're talking, or maybe you find them very authentic, or maybe you just like their, eyelashes. I Doesn't matter. Like, you know, doesn't matter. Whatever it is you like, and you can tell them that, hey, I really like your mascara. Where'd you get that from? I've done that. But point being that notice things in people. Start noticing things in people in your LinkedIn community. Maybe I think that's the easiest place, right? Notice things first. Then when you like something about someone, approach them saying, hey, you know what, I noticed, I watched this thing of yours, or I read this post of yours, and this is what I really liked about it. Can you spare 30 minutes of your time in the next like 2 weeks or so to chat with me? Give them a time frame as well. Make it as easy for them to say yes, right? Then when you actually reach out to them, this is the fundamental aspect of being coachable, right? The other person doesn't know if you want advice, and the other person, you might assume that when you get on a call with them, okay, that they're just naturally going to give you advice. They're not, because they're also like, let's say if that person is humble person, and they have a lot of self awareness, right? Which is why I'm assuming you've reached out to them in the first place. Then they're not just going to give you advice because you're on the call. Like, you need to tell them that, hey, you know what, I actually love X, Y, and Z about you. Have a conversation, but then be explicit about the fact that, you know what, I actually, can you give me some, if you had to give me some career advice for me right now, what would that be? Like, literally start ask. I actually ask this to people even now. I'm like, hey, can you give me some career advice? And sometimes people are like, oh no, I like, I think you got this. I'm like, no, 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 I really, just anything, just give me something, you know and I even give, what, I was thinking about who I asked this recently to. It's actually the person who interviewed me for, yeah. I asked them like, hey, can you give me some, before we get off the call, I really liked the way you interviewed me, the style in which you interviewed me, can you give me some career advice? That did two things. One is that made me get some actual advice, and two, that gave the interviewer a quick view into who I am as a person, that I am actually coachable, right? But okay, keeping interviews aside, in general, you have to be explicit, be very intentional about telling people, hey, tell me, give me advice. I want your advice. If you don't say that, people are not going to give it to you. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, exactly. And then, like, in terms of feedback being difficult to take, or let's say advice, right, being difficult to hear, maybe it's something you're not good at doing, but you have to do. Let's stick to feedback, right? Like, let's say you ask someone, hey, can you give me feedback on this thing I did, or how I presented, right? That it's not going to be easy to hear, but when you ask, this is reverse psychology. This is actually you tricking your brain, because when you ask someone feedback, you're actually controlling the fact that you're basically finding a way to psychologically control the environment by saying, by asking for feedback yourself. Because if you didn't ask for it and you got it, then you're going to be like, whoa, what, like, and then you're going to be defensive, right? But if you actually ask for it, you're actually preparing your brain that, hey, you know what, this might be tough, whatever's coming from the other side, but I want you to take it, right? And then, so then when the other person gives you feedback, you're like, oh yeah, I mean, I asked for it, so So you don't take it as hard as if someone actually gives it to you by themselves. So in some shape or form, I use this as a way to protect myself, but also as a way to like actually get feedback by just asking people like, hey, give me feedback, so that they actually do that. And then it actually it actually helps you become a you know what, when someone actually gives you feedback or when they give you advice, let's say this person that's giving you advice is 50 years old, right? They're giving you something like a nugget or a secret to success that is 50 years worth, right? It's not just some sentence, it's 50 years old worth of something that can accelerate your path to success by maybe 5 years. Maybe something that you would learn 5 years later is something you would learn 5 years before. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is that it can be a small nugget or it can be a small tip. But like you mentioned, the fact that they're giving it to you with their years of experience, that's something to just respect. Even if it's a little thing, just understand that if it made a difference in their life, it definitely will in your life. Sometimes one of the tips that I got a while ago from someone who, like you said, who's been in the industry for I think 2 3 decades, his advice was ask more questions. In my mind, I was like, ask more questions. But Priyanka, especially being in technical sales, the power of asking questions is everything. That's how you win deals. And then now, like I said, almost 8 years, 7 8 years into my career, I realized the value of asking questions. And funnily enough, I get complimented on asking the best questions in the room. So you never know how, even though that tip might be very small at that moment, you never know how it can actually benefit you if you implement it, right? I don't know if you found the same in your career.
No, absolutely. And you know what? I mean, my colleagues find my questions fascinating. My friends find my questions annoying. So I really have to strike a balance. But, but I think like you'd be surprised how many people still to this day don't ask questions because they feel like, oh, I don't want to bother you. I don't want to be a bother. Oh, I didn't want to disturb you, so I didn't ask you a question. I mean, my own partner does that to me, and I'm like, what? Like, what's there to disturb me? What's disturbing me? Like nothing. In fact, I tell people like, you know what? If you feel like reaching out to someone or asking someone a question is you bothering them with with the question itself, then yeah, go bother them. What's wrong in bothering them, right? Just do it. So yeah, I mean, and even like in the sales role, in tech sales specifically, asking questions, um, getting to the root of the problem is also in technical terms, right, or in the technical world, is you get to the root of the problem by actually asking questions. Because when customers tell you that this is X, Y, and Z is my problem, maybe that's not actually the problem. Maybe the real problem is much deeper than that. And so to get to that problem, you actually have to ask a lot of questions. And the best solution architects and the best account managers are the ones that actually ask questions enough to really convince themselves that this is really the problem, because 70% of the solution is the problem, is getting to the problem, right? And that's, you get to that problem by asking enough questions.
Yeah. And the way that I convince myself that I should never be afraid to ask questions is that humans love to talk, especially talk about themselves. So if you're asking the right questions and they're opening up, that's a win to begin with. Because a lot of people, they just stay quiet because they, again, like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, they don't want to talk too much. Like there's that fear of talking too much. So asking the right questions is the best way to open, someone's gateway into their journey and just learning more about them. So we
Yeah,
talked
and there's
about,
no
yeah,
silly,
sorry, go ahead.
sorry, and just saying that there's no stupid questions, there's no silly
Yes,
questions. Yeah.
that is for sure, because the most silliest questions are also the questions that other people in the room might have, but everyone is just afraid to, ask those questions because everyone is just thinking the same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, and I've actually seen that so many times, Dolica. Like I would ask,
Yeah.
or someone would ask, and then later on, everyone in the team chat privately would be like, "Oh, you know what? I had the same question," and you're like, wow, you realize everyone's, because I think fundamentally all human beings think alike,
Yes.
right? Our brain works the same. So, if you think of it in a psychological way, then really there's no silly or stupid questions.
Yeah. And there's another thing to this, right? Sometimes when we ask a question, you know how the other person is like, great question. Now we missed our chance to get our question to be appreciated because we didn't speak too fast, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
the,
I did, however, I do have to say that I did take some time to get to the point where I felt like my questions were not, like, where I felt like even if my question was stupid or silly,
yeah.
or at least the fact that I thought it was, that it's okay for it to be that way.
Yeah.
So I have to say that it took me a few years. It wasn't something that naturally came to me like the first day of my career where I was like, oh, you know what, I can go ahead and ask a stupid question. Because sometimes you think, oh, you know what, is this question too basic? Right? Like, oh my God, like, can I tell people I don't know what the cloud means? Like, like something very basic, right? You're
Yeah.
like, I don't know what this means. Like, I don't know how a storage system
Yeah.
works. Like, you know, and you're like, I don't know if I should tell this to someone or ask them that, right? And then yeah, so I mean, the fear is real, but it gets better,
Yes.
or hopefully it gets better um, with the right intention, and by doing it,
An action.
um,
Yeah.
I, I just say do it, and then you start feeling 1% better, and then do it again, and then you start feeling another percent better, and you
Yeah.
just keep doing it until you basically don't care, because your brain has felt safe enough times to
Yeah.
do it and not have major consequence. Yeah.
100% agree. Now, we spoke a lot about growth mindset, asking questions, and these are all the qualities of someone who is ambitious, right? I think that's a good way to put it. So, there is going to be a time in our careers where we feel like the ambition is getting to us, and maybe a little bit of, just draining out or burnout, just a lot of feeling like every other area of our life is out of balance. So, how do we protect our identity in tech while maintaining a health, our health, while maintaining our relationships and every other hobby in our life? How do we do that? Because being in tech and being in corporate itself is so demanding and it just pulls out so much of our energy. So, how do you do it, and how have you seen the successful people do it?
I think, first of all, if you have a bad manager who doesn't respect that you have a life, there's no way. There's no tip, like nothing is gonna work, right? That's so let me just call that out there, right? Like if you ask me to this day, if I had to choose between a job and a manager, I'll always say manager. Because if you have a bad manager, there's nothing worse than that in a work environment. Nothing, like literally nothing. Not even the worst failure, nothing is worse than having a bad manager. So that out of the way. Now, in terms of whatever it is that you can control, let's assume you have a great manager. Now it's on you to control your time, right? I still remember, um, even I think, and I think this was something I don't know why I was naturally good at it, but I just was, where after 5 o'clock I would just like, close my laptop, and then my other friends would be at AWS would be like working till 7 8, and I would be like, oh yeah, I'm just watching Netflix, and and they were like, oh my God, I have this customer meeting, I have that, and I'm like, oh my God, why am I not scared enough? you know and yeah, and literally you won't believe, Dolica, even now on my phone, I don't have email, I don't have work email. I have a picture of Jasmine, but i don't I don't have my work email on my phone. I only have Slack, which is for someone to get in contact with me if it's very urgent. But I cannot see my email. Like, I don't take my laptop on vacations, and this is, I I've done it. Like, literally I've done it. And you know people can't comprehend it. They're like, what? Like, what if something, I'm like, the company's not the company's not falling apart without me. I know that for sure. Like, yeah, they love me and all that, my colleagues love me, but you know and the reason I'm talking about, like, I'm focusing on things that we can control is because this stress is on us. Like, this is us in self-inflicting imbalance in our life where we are choosing to be stressed about work emails on our phone. We are choosing to be stressed about, being on a vacation, sitting in front of a beach and opening our laptop. We are choosing to respond to people after 5 p.m. Sometimes when I might still look at my email after 5 p.m., but I would still not respond. Or I would even look at a Slack message and I would not respond. And, people have a hard time even not responding. But I'm just like, if I don't show people what it's like to work with me, with Priyanka, then it's not their fault because they're just going to be like, oh, Priyanka responds after after 5 o'clock. Oh, no problem. But if so I need to create the habit for people to follow, right? So that's really my, and this is something, since I conduct interviews at AWS as well. um, Candidates sometimes ask me that, I've heard that Amazon is, can be a stressful environment, etc. And I'm like, yeah, if you want it to be, you know. And they're like, "Oh, is it true?" I'm like, "Well, working at AWS is not for the faint-hearted, because it is a highly innovative company. It is, there's a lot of ambiguity because of the level of innovation. So, you know, I will say it is one of the exactly, yeah. Like I would say it's one of the best companies to work for, but I would also say it's not for everybody. It's not for the faint-hearted. It's only for the ones who are really passionate and who really care about technology, t- as a passion, right? And so you can't I mean, and you can't not have any stress, right? There will be some stress always, but I think it's on us to really balance that. And I know we've talked about this in our phone conversations before too, which is like finding a way to center yourself, right? Whether it's through meditation. For me, it's like I like going to animal sanctuaries, or like working closely with animals. So like that gives me a sense of groundedness and meaning to my life. But it could be different things. For someone it's biking, for someone it's hiking, you know. But I think it's so important to have hobbies. Even like now recently, I started modeling a few years back. Then I was doing pageantry, and then I found another world there. Because then you know what, the other thing with hobbies is also that need you don't need to be validated from one place. Like, then you can feel like, you know what, it's just work, okay, whatever. Because you don't feel like that's the only place for you to find your value. I think that's the other big challenge with people and identities, where they associate so much of their identity to just work, that when something fails at work, or when they get laid off, or something big happens at work, or they receive harsh feedback, they're just completely like, just they're drowning, right, mentally. But that's because of how much of an identity that you've attached to work. So it all starts with these basic habits of realizing that work is just a part of your life. And yes, in your 20s it can feel like it's everything. Yeah, I've been there. And that's okay. But I think it's important to know when to start, as to your point, when to start balancing life with work. Because work is always going to be a part of your life. It's never going to be a whole life.
Yeah. Priyanka, I will say that's a great answer. I am telling you, I think that's the best answer to if someone were to say, what how can I maintain work life balance? I don't believe in work life balance, but that's another story. But I think that's a great way to have an identity of your own. And you mentioned, right, when someone asks what do you do, the first thing you say is the title of your role. But then there's so many other identities people carry, but they just forget about it. I also want to mention, you spoke about boundaries, and I can't emphasize how important that is. Because recently I responded to an email after hours, really late in the night, and the next day, um, someone mentioned to me that you probably don't want to do that because now you are letting other people reach out to you at that time, and they think that if they did reach out to you, they can expect an answer from you. So you're setting that expectation by doing it. So you not, you mentioned you see an email after work hours, you see it, but you don't take action until business hours. I think that's really great advice. Now I know we're yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to add that sometimes, it's not a perfect world. So sometimes, yeah, I do respond and I do. And I think that's the other like work ethic aspect, which is like people I work with, I make sure that they know that if it is something actually very urgent and critical, that I will be there day or night, right? But if it is not urgent or if it's not important, if those are not the two categories of that message, then I will not respond. And that is also important to show other people that you actually have strong work ethics.
Yes. Yes.
So it's a win-win for everybody, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, 100%. So I know we're at the end of our podcast together. So I actually borrowed this from your podcast, which is doing rapid fire. I've never done it, so I'm borrowing this from you, and I'm gonna do it on
Oh
you.
no. Go ahead. Okay. I'm ready.
Okay, what is one work habit you are trying to unlearn?
Um, Thinking about things that don't really matter a week from now.
Hmm, very strong. What is one boundary that has made the biggest difference in your life?
Not responding until you feel that you're ready to do so.
Powerful. What is one career lesson you would give your younger self?
Um, think be more confident in who you are.
Wow. What is one thing that helps you reset after a difficult workday?
It is Jasmine, my cat. Like there's no
No,
better
you have to give a different answer.
companion.
That's a biased answer. That's a no-brainer.
Does it have to be something that I do as a practice?
It honestly can be anything other than Jasmine because I think we all know Jasmine is is a therapist.
Jasmine is my therapist. Yeah. Okay, okay, I will tell you.
Like think
After a
about that
long,
really
yeah,
difficult workday and you just
I
do this
yeah, I
thing and it helps.
yeah, I think I emotionally I just like I need to like talk to one of my close friends. That literally like I will literally scan through my contacts list and I'm like, who do I feel like talking to today? And whoever comes first to mind or whoever I see in the contact list that I want to talk to first, I just call them and like, hey, I want to talk. What's going on? That's it. Like I really enjoy talking to people. So I think that is
Yeah.
my best. So every time I call you, like you're helping me.
Well, I was actually just about to give myself a shameless plug. You did, call me was it a few weeks ago, a few months ago, saying,
Yeah,
I was not feeling like this. I went through my contact
yeah,
list and you were the one.
yeah, yeah. I absolutely do that. All the time, and I sometimes my friends are like, "Wait, what happened? Is everything okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just calling." Sometimes it'll be like 9 a.m. like 2 days back, I called my friend at 9 a.m. and she was like, "Wait, is everything okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, why?" She's like, "You're calling me at like 9 a.m. in the morning." I'm like, "Yeah, I just was just feeling weird." And she was like, "Oh, okay, fine." So yeah,
Last question. Complete the sentence. Success means blank to me now.
success means peace to me.
Hmm. Okay, I did not expect that word. Elaborate what peace means.
Yeah, I think feeling every moment of my existence. That's what I feel like is peace to me because there are times where there's this like mental turmoil,
Mm,
right? And those are times where I don't feel connected to myself. And I hate that because I just love being connected to myself.
yeah.
And to me, that is the truest essence of peace, where I can talk to myself, I can have a chat with myself, and it's just the best chat ever.
That's very powerful, Priyanka, because today every successful person I know, at least, not everyone, not I'm not trying to generalize this, but the success that we hear in media, especially every successful, yeah, every successful person I know in the media, they describe success from a burnout perspective, and you described it exactly on the as an opposite perspective, right? And so that is a very powerful answer. So
The reason I said that is also because when I am actually connected to myself, I make the best business decisions
that's true.
and I make the best career decisions. I make the best life decisions. But when I'm not connected to myself, I just do random shit, you know? So that's why I feel like, if you look at the top psychologists, you look at, experts who coach leaders, what they coach them on is how to stay grounded. And how do they stay grounded is, you know, being mindful and being aware of things, and creating that energy for yourself that is
It's neuroscience.
authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and authenticity comes from being connected to yourself, and therefore peace. If you're seeking peace, then you will automatically be seeking all these elements that will make you an authentic person and help you make the best, most informed, meaningful, aware decisions in work and in life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what true alignment is, where your actions, your words, and your thoughts are in alignment. And now you can make the best decisions. 1000%.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Priyanka, for doing this. You're a very close friend of mine, but you're still my mentor first. And you've helped me
I
so much.
Yeah,
And I wanted to bring all the brains behind you, beautiful person, to share with the rest of the world. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy, busy life to do this for me.
yeah, Dolica, it's actually a pleasure of mine because, you know, even my mentor tells me this all the time that you're not the only one that's learning from me. I'm also learning from you. So it's
Mm.
same thing for you. I'm also learning from you. And I feel like one of the best qualities about you is that you are a seeker,
Mhm.
um, in the truest sense of the word, you know, and that actually inspires me to continue seeking, because every time I talk to you, I'm like, wow, she is actually asking these things, or she's trying to seek answers, and she's trying to, and so that reminds me to do more of that. So keep reminding people to seek more, learn more with, and with your energy of being so intentional in doing so. So yeah, keep being you, and thank you for having me on your podcast. I know you've been so passionate about
Yeah.
sharing your voice and sharing the message and talking about health and balance and well-being and all of those things. I think that's really important, that someone talks about that, because I think burnout and mental
Yeah.
health are topics that are not talked about enough, especially from people who are in the corporate, in the tech world. So
Yeah.
you're doing an amazing job, and I'm really, really happy to be on this podcast finally after talking
Oh,
about it for a while.
thank
Yeah.
you. Okay, I didn't pay you, okay, to say all the great things about me. I just asked you to
No,
share
you
your
did.
advice. Did
No,
I?
you did. This was, you know me. I will not give you a compliment until I actually mean it. I so
I
no,
know.
this I actually mean it. And yeah, thank you for having me. And I wish you all the success in the podcast and in your career. I think you're going to do amazing things because you actually decide to do it.
Thank you. And I reflect the same back to you because you're starting a new role. And so I'm sending all the good luck, good wishes, best wishes. And I can't wait to witness all the growth because you are that, and continue on doing great things.
Thank you so much, Dalika.
Thank you, Priyanka.
All right.